The Doors' final show took place in New Orleans, the city that care forgot. Jim Morrison was slipping away, and the show was packed with bad omens and ominous signs that this was indeed the end. The night before, the Doors played 2 shows in Dallas, with Morrison and the rest of the band giving incredible performances. On December 12, 1970, the Doors played their final concert with the late Jim Morrison. The show took place at the 3,500-seat warehouse. Tickets were $5. Future 70s stars Kansas opened, with some members joining the Doors for Light My Fire. LA Woman would be released a few months later, on April 19, 1971. The Doors treated the audience to a preview of 4 songs from the album: LA Woman, Love Her Madly, Hyacinth House, and Riders on the Storm. It sounds like the makings of an incredible show, but it didn't go well. By the time Jim arrived that night, he had been living his life like a Roman candle, burning at both ends for the last 5 years. Indeed, Morrison had been heavily into psychedelics for at least 5 years, and was reportedly drinking heavily. A few months earlier, Morrison was convicted of indecent exposure and profanity, and he was out on bond while he appealed his conviction. So the very real specter of 6 months in jail was hanging over Jim's head when the Doors stepped on stage for the second night of their winter tour. The band played 20 songs. Here's the complete set list. The show has never been released, but a recording of it does exist. MILD EQUATOR.com has posted images of the 2-inch tape and boxes. There's a link to their article about it in the description. Jim had grown out his beard and gained some weight. The Lizard King had been replaced by a rock and roll Hemingway type, to the surprise of some fans. Morrison was so loaded he could barely stand up, and he looked like a homeless person. He had a big bushy beard, and he looked like he hadn't washed his hair in a month. I didn't recognize him until he started talking. They were terrible. It still ranks as one of the worst shows I've ever attended. The band was also clearly disenchanted with Jim's antics. Manzarek was set up stage left, facing outward, and he seldom, if ever, looked back at Jim. He was constantly looking at his watch. Promoter Don Fox said, "Jim had a buzz on that night. I don't know exactly what from, but he was not all there. He was slurring and rambling. He was having a tough time." Between songs, Morrison told unfunny and sometimes crude jokes that were bombing. He kept pretending he was going to take his pants off in reference to his looming obscenity charges. At one moment, Jim simply stopped singing and sat down. Dutkowski, the Doors archivist, said, "Multiple band members said it was like something left him at that moment. Ray Manzarek swore he looked up from his keyboard and saw Jim's spirit leave his body. He swears the shamanistic energy, the soul of Jim Morrison, flowed out of his body, and with it, the will to perform." The band left the stage apparently disgusted. Jim came alive again, urging the audience to clap the band back on stage, which they did. The band returned, with Jim using the mic stand as a crutch. During Light My Fire, Jim sat down on the drum risers during the solo. Morrison failed to get up for the final chorus and verse. John Densmore was prodding Jim with his toe, trying to get him off the drum riser, and that was what set Jim off. Don Fox said, "Jim started talking about life and death and what was going on in the world in 1970. All of a sudden, he took the mic stand and started smashing it right into the stage floor. And then he walks off. Turns out, Jim had literally smashed a hole clean through the stage." Morrison left the stage during an instrumental break and didn't come back until he was bodily thrown onto the stage by a stagehand or somebody after the rest of the band had improvised an awkward ending to the song they were playing. When they started the next song, he staggered up to the mic and began trying to sing the lyrics of the previous song. Manzarek kept looking at his watch. Finally, Densmore stood up, yelled something I couldn't understand, threw his drumsticks out onto the stage, left the stage, and that was that. There was no encore, and it was the last time they ever performed with Jim Morrison. The other 3 band members unanimously agreed that they had to stop the tour. They returned to LA and finished the LA Woman album from the safe space of the studio. Then Jim went to Paris to relax and get cleaned up. On July 3rd, 1971, Jim Morrison was found dead in the bathtub of his apartment in Paris, France, by his longtime companion, Pamela Courson. The coroner ruled the cause of death heart attack induced by respiratory problems. Jim Morrison was 27 years old. The Warehouse repaired the hole in the stage, and Don Fox wrote "Dedicated to Jim Morrison" on it after Jim passed away. If you dug this video, please click like and subscribe, it helps a lot. And then check out this video, which was selected just for you by YouTube's team of friendly robots. They know us better than we know ourselves.